Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, let's start this Makkot Staf Chaf Beis. We are going to begin on the bottom of Chaf Aleph Amud Beis with the word Esvei Abaye. So Abaye is going to ask a question based on what we learned before. Our Mishnah mentioned that it's possible a person can do one act, namely plowing a single furrow, and be chayiv shmona lavin, 8 different lavin. And the Mishnah discusses what they 8 are. And, of course, one of them is plowing on Yom Tov. On this, the Gemara asks, well, why don't we mention planting also? Because when you're plowing, you're also doing a form of zoreya. So on this, we heard a very important difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. When it comes to Shabbos, we say, yesh chilk malachos b'Shabbos. Namely, if you end up doing multiple malachos, you can be chayiv al kol achas yachas. Masha ein kain, when it comes to Yom Tov, ein chilk malachos b'Yom Tov. And therefore, you're only going to be chayiv for one and not the other. So therefore, there's no reason for us to mention that you're be chayiv for chayresh, plowing in zoreya, and planting, because you could only be chayiv one. Again, Esvei Abaye, the ein chilk malachos b'Yom Tov. Is it really true that this law doesn't apply? That there's no malacha, that we can't be chayiv more than one on Yom Tov? But Tanat, hamavashal gid b'chalav b'Yom Tov, v'ochlu loika chamesh. So here's another guy who loves piling all the sins in one shot. He cooks on Yom Tov. Now, we're going to see, typically, you should be able to cook on Yom Tov. But we're going to see why that may be problematic. Now, a gid is something you're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to eat the sciatic nerve. And not only that, it's considered to be a form of meat. And because of that, because it's considered to be a form of meat, you're not allowed to eat it with milk. And again, on Yom Tov is a problem because you cooked it, we'll see. V'achlu, and you ate it. So we know that there's a separate isser of bishul, basa b'chalav, and achilas, basa b'chalav. So you're like a chamesh. So what are they? First of all, like mishum oichel gid. You're chay because you eat from the gid and nasha, which you're not allowed to eat. The like mishum avashal b'Yom Tov, shelo l'tzarech. You're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, but it's got to be l'tzarech oichel nefesh. It's got to be something that you're allowed to eat. But if it's something in which is usher to eat, so therefore it's considered to be shelo l'tzarech. The like mishum avashal gid b'chalav. You're not allowed to cook a gid with milk, because it's basa b'chalav. The like mishum oichel basa b'chalav. You're chayiv for, you can get malchus because you ate basa b'chalav. So again, there's a separate isser of bishul and chila, of cooking and eating. And v'loike, as we continue to chaf beis amud aleph, mishum havara, by you lit a match and you made a fire. Okay, which of course you're not allowed to do on Yom Tov. Now v'im isa mishum havara lo mechayev. Why does it mention havara, which is one of the lamates malachos, and bishul, which is one of the lamates malachos? Understand, if you already chayev for cooking, so then that's one of the lamates malachos. So according to what we said before, that the ein chiluk malachos b'Yom Tov, so l'chara you shouldn't havara, you shouldn't get malchus for. Your answer is you're right. That's a good point, and therefore apik havara v'ayil get a shel nevela. So instead, we'll have to remove havara to remain consistent that you can't get too, you can't be over on 2 malachos on Yom Tov like that. And instead, we'll put in that it's a get hanasha of nevela. So that's another issue. Avotani Reb Chia loika shtayim al chilosav loika al bishul. So it is true that you can be chayav 5, but there was an understanding of Masorah, if you will, that out of these 5, 2 of them are because of eating, 3 of them is cooking. Now, now, of course, you're not allowed to eat from a gid and nasha. You're also not allowed to eat from gid and nasha shel nevela. So, and you're also not allowed to eat basa b'chalav. So that's actually 3. So therefore, that can't be it. It cannot be linked to eating. It's got to be linked to. It's got to be linked to cooking. So el apik havara v'ayil atzia shera. So you, of course, you cooked, but you cooked with the atzia shera, the wood of an Asherah tree, which is a Avodah Zarah, which, of course, one is not allowed to one is not allowed to do. And therefore, that is the Isser. So, V'azharti Mehacha, and the Azhara, for you to be able to get Malchus, you have to have an Azhara, Mehacha, V'lo Yidbak B'yadcha V'gaimer. Termali Ravacha B'rei Rebel Ravashi, V'lilki Nami Mishel Mo Savi Sawei Vel Beisecha. You're also allowed to bring an abomination to your house. So if it's talking about Avodah Zarah, there's another lav. So therefore, it shouldn't be 5; it should be 6. Actually, what you did is you cooked with atzi hektish. That when it comes to those things which are avodah zarah, you destroy them. So basically, you're now to burn something which is considered to be atzi hektish. So therefore, by doing that, then you're chayiv. Okay. So, but the point of all this is it shows that we remain consistent and true to our understanding of the din of Rava that ein chiluk malachas b'yomtiv. Simin shanba shnaz maskev Rav hoishia. So he asked the question: V'lechshav nami hazreya benachal eson. Why don't we include that when you were doing your planting, it was done in Nachal Eitan? What is that? So let's see the psukim. So when it comes to the din of Egla Rufa, it has to be done in this place in which there was no planting. So if you did plant there, so then you're chayiv. So Maskeh Reb Chanina Lushav Nami Hamuchsek Es Hashem Belichasai Hamoichek Es Hashem Belichasai. So you could tack on other stuff. Let's say, for example, while you're walking, you erase Hashem's name. You destroyed Hashem's name. You should destroy their names. However, which is interesting because we already learned but that's by the Atzi Hektish. But here, if you're erasing Hashem's name, you're also allowed to do that. So, Maskeh Rabavoy V'lichshav Nami Hakaitites Beharto. Let's say you cut off your saras, which you're not allowed to do. V'azharti Mehacha Hishamer Benega HaSaras. You have to be careful with it. So, Maskeh Rabavoy V'lichshav Nami HaMaziach HaChayshin Hal Ephod. So let's say we're talking about a Kohen Gadol over here plowing. Like, who's this guy? But let's say that you remove the chayshin, the breastplate, from the ephod, or hameser bandi aron. You remove the poles, the staves that carry the aron. So you're not allowed to remove them. If it's harti mahacha, los asuru los yizach chayshin. So maskeh Rav Ashi nami hacharish b'atzi ashera, that you plowed with the atzi ashera with these trees for avodah zarah. Let's see, you're chopping down beautiful trees. You're not allowed to do that. Don't cut them down. So we can just keep piling them on. Fine. So let's just keep going. So Amalei Rav Ze'er Rav Mani V'lechshem Nami K'gayin the Emer Shvua Shel Echreish B'Yomtiv. So maybe you made a shvua and you said, I make a shvua, I'm not going to plow in Yomtiv. So maybe that works. No Hasam Loka Chala Shvua. That shvua won't work because Moshe B'Oimim Har Sinaihu. You can't make a shvua that says that I will not do a malacha. Of course, you're not allowed to. The Torah says you can't do a malacha. That's not a shvua. A shvua is not chal on yourself. A shvua is chal on the gavra. You can't. It's not going to be chal if you're making a shvua on something which was already a chiyuv on you. It was already a chiyuv gavra. Amalei Kagain. Maybe if you said to Aimer shvua shel echreish bein b'chol b'yomtiv. Now, of course, on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to plow anyway, but on the weekday you can. So so there's a concept that since it is chal the shvua on the week, so therefore, since it does work, everything else is like dragged along with it. So the Gemara says, "Midid isay b'she'elo lo katani." Let's say, did I miss that? Midid isay b'she'elo lo katani. Anything that could be removed by hafara or she'ela, we're not going to mention because it's something that could have always been removed. Below v'hari hektish. How about when it comes to hektish? So something which is hektish, you could be mefer. Does b'bechor. We're talking about a Bechor, which is considered to be Kodesh Merechem. V'hari Nazir, right, which we know a Nazir could also have it removed, but Nazir Shimshin. So Nazir Shimshin bar Tmulu Mesimhu. Understand, when one of the things that we talked about is that he becomes Tamei Mace. What do you mean? A Nazir Shimshin is allowed to become Tamei Mace. Ella Haitaina, the whole mentioning in our Mishnah is when we talk about a Nazir, it's one of the Shloin Alavin. What do you mean? If he's a Nazir Shimshin, he's allowed to become Tamei. We saw Shimshin became contact with the dead many times. Ella Haitaina Isser Koil Leisley. Our Tana doesn't have this notion of an Isser Koilel, of just lumping millions of different things together, even though technically it sounds like he does, right? So Amar Rabbi Yishia, Harmavia Shor Psul Mikdoshim. Now, if a person breeds an ox with an animal which is possible from Hektish, like a Shnayim, he actually will get 2 sets of Malkus. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Hamanig Bishor Psul Mikdoshim, one who guides an ox with Psul Mikdoshim is like also gets Malkus Shahari Guf Echad, who it's one body. The also Akasav Kishnei Gufim. However, it's considered Ki'il like it's 2. Okay. Says Rashi, V'hilkach also harvio afil iminoi mishum kilayim. So it's still an isser, even if it's the exact same animal. One is a shore, one's a shore, but because they're considered to, one is psul mikdashim, so therefore it's an issue of kilayim. Says Rashi, shemarvia chulin al kadshim o kadshim al chulin. V'chen manig afil manhig iminoi, even if you guide it together with another ox. Interesting, even if it's leading itself. Okay. Fine. So the Minchas Chinuch says that the Isser only applies at the time of the Avoda, right? When it comes to removing these things. But here it isn't doing the avoda, so why would there be a lav? So this is why some say the Gemara's kashas are like the Rambam's pshat, that it's not a question on our Mishnah, but rather it's on Daf Yud Gimel, right? It's just going back on why don't we include these other cases in our Mishnah at the beginning of the 3rd parak of getting Malkus. Okay, maybe there's a question here. Let's see. Question 3. Tamavashal gid hanashe b'cholav b'yamte v'yachal loike chamish. Elu chamish malchus moinin bebraisa. That's a tough one. What are the 5? Which one did he remove and why? So there is you ate gid hanashe. You cooked on Yom Tov Shol Tzarech. You also are chayav because you cooked gid with milk. Also, you ate bas b'cholav, and also havara. Now, the question is, how could you be chayav for havar and bishul? And therefore, that's why Rava removed it, because bishul is mentioned, and we hold the b'yom tov in chilch malachas b'yom tov, and therefore he removed it, and instead he inserted l'maskana bishul b'atzei hektish. Okay, that is actually the maskana. Okay, let's see. Question TA 23. Abdullah Kalbashmaina. Okay, I didn't do that. TB 24. Okay, let's continue. All right, so now we're going to learn a little bit more about the din of actually getting malchus. Says the Masdisen. Kama malchanoiso. Can you imagine? We're almost at the end of the Masechta. There's only two blot left, and then only here do we ask this question. Of course, we do here loika arboyim. So this is what it says. Kama malchanoiso. So arboyim chasarachas. It's actually 39. Shnemar b'mispar arboyim. What is the number to 40? Minyan shu samach arboyim. It's the number which is close to 40, which is not 40. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer arboyim shlema sulaika. So it's actually machlokas. Rabbi Yehuda says you actually get a 40th malka. V'heichen hu loika. That's the Yisera, because if there's 39, it corresponds to 3 sets of 13. We're going to see it's all based on 3s. So what do we do with the 40th? So it's bank safe between the shoulders. So we're only going to evaluate in accordance to how much he can actually withstand up to 3. which we'll understand in a second. So in on Erev Rosh Hashanah, we are mater. Basically, we said before we're mater in the Darim, and we say Nazir Shimshon. But our Gemara says that you can't be mater this neder. So some, for this reason, interestingly enough, actually do not include this in Kol Nidre. Okay. Anyway, Dul Kabul or Boyim Veloika Mixus. Let's say we have figured it out that he could actually withstand all 40, and he gets some of them as we continue to Chapez and Beis. V'amdu she'en yachol Kabul or Boyim, and then we figure out that actually he can't. So Potter. Because even though we originally thought he can get the 40, but let's say he did 21, and like this guy's gonna die if we hit him again. That's it. As Rashi says, Kivandam Vanzeb Basin. Since you already had him embarrassed in Basin, Velok Ksas, and he's already been hit a little bit, Sagli Bahachi, then that is enough. Fine. However, says the Gemara, the Mishnah, Amdul Kabul Shmoina Esrei. Let's say he figure out he can get 18. Mishilaka, after he got hit, Amdu Shiachal Kabul or Boyim Potter. So even though it's true, we thought he could hold 18, and he's just walking around. Yeah, no big deal. Hit me another 22 times, whatever. So you're Potter. You don't hit him anymore. Now, my time. Why is it not the 40? So Iksiv or Boyim B'Mispar. If it would say that number 40 is the number, Safamino or Boyim B'Minyana. You would think that 40 is counted. It's like Ad Viad B'Chalal. The number which leads you to 40, which is 39. How foolish are many people. The Kaimi Mikmei Sefer Torah, they only stand up in front of a Torah. They don't stand up before a scholar. It says 40. And you get one less. So just because of one less, that's not the point. The point is that the rabbis, a lot of times we think, the rabbis are trying to do things to make our lives miserable. They make our lives difficult. They have all these different fences. No, that is not their motivation. They really don't do it because they want to make our lives more difficult. Because we see, when it comes to Makkot, that their goal is to try to interpret the Torah in the most proper, correct way. And therefore, sometimes it ends up being lenient as well. So therefore, you should just assume, you should listen to the Torah and not respect the scholars. In fact, the Gemara in Kedushin interestingly points out there is no pasuk for standing for a Sefer Torah. There's an Indian of standing for a Chacham because the Sefer Torah dartim nizakin. And we only learn out of Kal V'Chomer that you should, if you stand up for them, you stand up for a Torah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rabbayim Shleim Zechul 40. So Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, my time, Rabbi Yehuda, why 40? Dichsiv Ma Hamakas Ha'elu. What are these bruises or hits? Bein Yadecha, between your hands, which is referring to between the shoulders. The Yomer Asher Hikaisi base Me'oivai. I was basically hit from those who loved me, which is interesting. Though that is the way one should value or look at punishment. That's actually referring to a kid that got hit. So laka in, lo laka lo. So again, if let's say we say the guy can only hold all 40, and then you hit him 21, and you see he can't get hit anymore, stop. If let's say you hit him, you said the guy can only handle 21, he got hit 21, and he looks perfectly fine, like this guy can handle 40, you stop. That's only because you hit him. But if you didn't hit him, then the din's not like that. Minhu amduhu kabor boyim. Let's say you saw that you're just amdu. You only evaluated he could handle 40. The chazer amdu she'en yachol kabor boyim. It turns out you didn't even hit him at all, but then the second time you evaluate that he actually, we made a mistake. He can't handle 40. He can only handle, let's say, 21, potter. That's it. So what's the point? The point is that even though you didn't actually hit him, nonetheless the din is that since you reevaluate him for less, then you do that which is less. So let's say he can only handle 18. And so again, we don't make any distinction between being hit or not being hit. Even if you're not hit, we still will listen to. We'll say, okay, we hit him 8. He was told to get 18, and then now we figure out 40. We'll just stick to the 18. So we're going to always do the lower number, even if he didn't get hit. So Amar Rav Sheshes lo kasha. Hadiyamdu liyomi, hadiyamdu lomachlu liyomi ochra. One is if he was evaluated the second time on the same day, and the other is when he was reevaluated on a different day. Now, exactly what that means is not so pashut. So Rashi says if it's uvoy vayoim, it was on the same day. Chazr v'omdu, if you evaluate him a second time, so and then you saw it was a different amount. So we can say shiachol kabel arboim igali milsa de tab oimed risha made a klum, right? So it's clear that you made a mistake. If you made a second evaluation, let's say in the same day, the same time, like 20 minutes later, clearly the first evaluation wasn't correct. It says Rashi v'hilkach lo loka kfar kol shmoyne esrei. If he wasn't hit, even though he wasn't hit, poiter and oisan. He's potter. Givan diyatsa mebeisdin kvar bezoyin beisdin hu lach 0. Okay. In the Brisa, says Rashi, you evaluate him on a different day. Yom acher. Dahu vaday oimid gomerhu. We say that the first evaluation was correct. Shiafa aino, that we actually correctly looked into it, that he was able to accept this on that particular day. And then, for whatever reason, he got weaker the following day. So therefore, it's possible that both evaluations are correct. Hilkach, says Rashi, Kiyam duhu or boyim, when we say that he can handle 40 on this particular day, however, when it came to the next day, when we evaluate him and said that he's not able to handle it, so in that situation, we say it's an oimid gomer. Hoya, that the first evaluation was correct. So it doesn't make any difference. The fact that even though you didn't hit him, so it was on another day, that even if you didn't hit the guy, according to the reading of this Rashi, so therefore we say you're potter because we assume that both evaluations were correct. However, in a situation where it was all on the same day, so it must be your first evaluation was incorrect, and therefore it's only if he gets malchus. Okay, let's look at question 4. Amduhu liyud ches. You evaluated he can only handle 18 lashes. V'koidim shaloka, says question 4. Before you hit him, amduhu, you evaluate oimid sheni. The oimer shiachol kabor boim. He can actually handle all 40. So kamaloika. You didn't hit him yet. So it depends. If you evaluated him a second time on that same day, so Yutaka will give him malchus 40 times. Because the first time was clearly not correct. But let's say you evaluate him on a separate day, and you say that the first one Taka could have been, and now the second one is also correct. And therefore, even though you didn't hit him yet, we say that he's going to be he'll be potter. Question, and that this is actually, it's a little bit of a difficult question, but that's what the answer is, which is the same as I think TA23. So let's just read it quickly. Amdul kabel shmeina esri umishaloka o koidem shaloka amdu shachal kabel arbayim. So you had 18, and then the second evaluation was 40. So is he potter or not? So again, if you hit him, you're definitely potter. If you didn't hit him, it depends. If he was evaluated twice on the same day, you'll still give him the second the malchus, because clearly the first one was a mistake. However, it was on a separate day, we're still just going to give him the 18. So it's a similar question, but this framed it a little bit nicer. TA23. So I'm glad I was able to read that question, and I have no doubt there's a similar question here. TB24. Amduhu liyadchas akadim shalaka amdu oimid sheni v'oimer shiachal kabel arboim kamalaika. So here it says kaidim shalaka, before he was hit. So you don't have to mention the whole notion if he was not hit. If he was hit, then that's certainly enough. We're talking about even if he wasn't hit, sometimes you will that will be accepted. So as I wrote, it was on the same day. then the Hamad Rishana was a tais. Was that Sheni Mashahu Yachol Kabel? Abel Im Ha'ayman Sheni Haya B'Yom Acher V'Lo B'Isa Hayayim Laika Ba'amada Harishayna. Okay, that's not exactly the right answer, but I think I had the right idea. Now let's see this small Mishnah, then we're going to stop. It says the next Mishnah, says about season. Over Avera Sheish Shnei Lavin. Person committed a sin which has two lavin, and Rashi says, for example, you plow an ox and a donkey together in a kilayim b'kerem. So if that's the case, amduhu oimed echad loika. If we give him one evaluation, he'll get malchus upater. V'im lav loika misrapa v'chayz loika. So basically, we give him one set, and he gets malchus. But if not, we can get malchus, and he'll be misrape, and he gets healed, and then we hit him again. Says Rashi, v'im lav. If, let's say, whatever reason, the lo amduhu oimid echad, el lav echad, amduhu, hilchaloika misrape. So let's say you evaluated them separately, so he gets healed, and then he has to get malchus a second time after he's healed. Losanya in oimid echad l'shnei lavin. I thought you don't do one evaluation for two lavin. So Rav Sheshel Kasha hamduhu arbayim v'chada hadi hamduhu arbayim v'tarti. One is if he's evaluated for 41. One is he's evaluated for 42, because we know you can only go in intervals of 39, and we always go of 3, and we always go less. So if we say the guy can only handle 41, right? So he's not going to get 41. He's not going to get 40. He'll get 39. So if he gets 39, that's really only equivalent to one set of malchus, and therefore he'd have to get healed and have to get malchus again. However, if let's say he was evaluated to get 42, so now, because he'll taki get 42, but it's only supposed to be 40, so therefore it links to a second set, and therefore that would be sufficient. Adka.